Yeah. You have finally shown up.
Tell me, what is your demand?
It's simple.
Jingwu, get His Majesty out of here now. Hurry. Majesty.
Timur! Don't!
Mother! Mother!
以为当归入药汤，相思泪许的心头上。叶儿了手舞在纸上，摇一时。
Nikikwambia hauna time ya kuongea, nimesema mimi natukana. Maya baba kwa nakujali tena sana.
Kazi zimepungua, so I'll have lots of time with you.
Kazi zimepungua ama kitu ama cha kukusumbua.
Babe, please.
Unaniongea vibaya lakini ukiniona mikono ya kuteleza vitu vishikike.
I cannot even breathe that. Hata sijui kule ni gani wala sijui ni mwana.
Sasa mwenzako nikikutuma, angalau pata mtu kuongea naye.
Kwa kuwa mambo uko ndani sina mtu wa kuzungumza naye.
Nani?
Ushauri kete na utaka sasa ni kuhusu kazi zangu, kampuni yangu. Basi.
Quiero amarte de una forma diferente, de otro modo.
You told Celia that you would take care of that when she was about to leave them here. Right here. Here. Here.
It's because I don't feel right, Nora. I don't feel fine. I'm so sad. I'm so scared for Max's future, for mine, for my babies.
I guess. It seems like they're all after the same thing, but I really feel that they have very different reasons.
We're siblings. You're my sister.
My brother? You're my brother?
Vamos, recobremos los momentos de una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente, respetando tus espacios.
A very good morning to you. My name is Daniel Wahome and welcome to SportsCheck. It is another Monday morning when we have a conversation around sport. We'll be talking football, basketball and esports throughout this morning. And also keeping up with what's happening in the news, there is a Tembo naming ceremony that's taking place at the KWS headquarters. Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala will be there. And we also have the Cabinet Secretary, Professor Margaret Kobia, who's also with the National Gender and Equality Commission, who are celebrating 10 years of existence. So those are some of the stories that we will be keeping tabs on. I will be telling you all about them as our team that is out in the field brings us the stories. This morning, our sign language interpreter is Susan Thuku. And before we get into conversations around sport, why don't we move over to Nairobi at the Pan-Africa Hotel, where we've got Robert Mushoge, who's the chair of the Poultry Breeders Association, and they are addressing the media about the cost of animal feeds and how it is affecting agribusiness in the country. Let's join in.
It will come to the miller, it will come to the farmer, and eventually the remaining part of the hospitality industry will have no inputs. It will be very hard to get the eggs locally or the chicken locally. Think about the vets who follow up the chicks that we produce, the agro vets, the builders, the fundi in the village who builds that chicken house, so that even the one who sells the equipment, the feeders. So you can see the ripple effect. The workers who are working in all these subsectors, the employees who are working in the breeder farms, in the hatcheries, in the feed mills, in the actual farms where the farmers have employed workers, the city market and the hotels, all those people are all intertwined. We are all interconnected. And the collapse of one part of the chain, and as the wise people say, a chain is as strong as its weakest link. So if we have a weakness in the cost of feeding, actually we have the weakness in the biggest part of the production chain. Because as Martin has just said, 80% of the cost of production is what has been affected and is what is ailing this industry. So for us as breeders, we are appealing to the regulator, who is the government. We are raising a red flag that we are sinking. We are contributors to the kitty of the national cake because we pay taxes, we employ people, we do this. And when this industry collapses, your guess is as good as mine. It will not be good for anyone. So we are appealing that the government may look at the points raised by Martin in terms of where they can give a waiver of duty and tax on imported products so that we can be able to survive. It's a crisis, we know, but the industry is on its deathbed if nobody comes to our rescue. If you look at the market, the chick prices have gone up. 2 years ago, a broiler chick would cost between 55 shillings and 60 shillings. Today, the lowest priced broiler day-old chick, commercial chick, is 80 shillings or 90, between 80 and 90. You can imagine that's a rise of about 20% in the cost of one chick. So when the cost of chicks is going up and the feed is going up and the farmer finds a poor market for the product, then that's a recipe for a disaster. So this is our plea to the government that the industry needs very fast rescue, or else we will only be read in books that there used to be an industry, animal feed industry, a breeder industry. And you know what happens? When things collapse, you know this is, your guess is as good as mine. People will start justifying why they need to import finished products because there are no eggs in the country. There's no chicken in the country. And that is when you will get Brazilian chicken here landing frozen, and that will be the end of us. Because frozen processed chicken does not need a veterinary to help.
Is Robert Mochugia. He is the chairman of the Poultry Breeders Association of Kenya, and he is issuing a statement where together they are talking with the manufacturers of foodstuffs for livestock, and it is about the cost of those goods and how to mitigate it to ensure that there is a competitive edge for people who are in agribusiness in the country. Benson Rioba is following up on that story. Now, time to get into a conversation around sport, and I'm joined by two young men, two footballers, and their involvement in the sport of football. They are from Talanta FC, the team that was formed in 2012 by the State Department for Sports, working together with UNICEF. And the whole story is it was meant to tap in the sporting talent in the country. Talanta FC, when it was formed, a coaching staff was hired, and they went around the country and identified young players who were put under the National Youth Talent Academy, and the best of the footballers were picked up and they formed Talanta FC. It was registered with the Football Kenya Federation, and over time what happened is they got to play in the leagues, got promoted to the National Super League in the 2015-2016 season, and at the end of the 2020-2021 season, they got promotion to the FKF Premier League. They will be playing there next year, and we're joined by the assistant captain. He's on my immediate left, Barak Odhiambo. He scored 8 goals for the club. Barak has been with Talanta FC for a year. Barak, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, and also we've got Anthony Gisho. He top scored for the side with 10 goals, and Gisho has been with the club for over 6 years. And Gisho, welcome and good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
First of all, the assistant captain, here you are. You joined the club and you get promoted to the FKF Premier League. What does that mean for you?
It's a great achievement. We've been working a lot for that. We've been pushing hard amid this corona. It has been slowing us, but we pushed a lot to achieve this feat.
Well, and talking about pushing a lot, they got promoted when there was still time, actually 4 matches to go in the NSL season. They were 12 points clear, and it was confirmed that they were going to get promoted. Gisho, you have been with the club. You're now a veteran of Talanta FC.
True.
Tell us about you joining Talanta FC 6.5 years ago, and what it has been for you seeing yourself get promoted from the nationwide league onto the NSL, the National Super League, and now the FKF Premier League.
Anthony Gisho, FC Talanta, attacking midfielder. I joined Talanta back in 2014. That's around 6 years, 6.5
7 years.
7 years. That time it was Coach John Kamau who brought me to Talanta. And
from which club did he pick you?
Bidco United. Hiyo time nilikuwa Bidco United, akanichukua. Hii ni mwaka tumeachieve sana kama team. Sababu hizo miaka zingine tumekuwa tukingangana kufika hapo juu. So hii mwaka tumepambana ya kutosha. Ndio maana tumejipata hapo hiyo Premier.
It is every footballer's dream to be in the FKF Premier League. And let's take a look at the first half of the season. And the teams that everyone was talking about were Kenya Police, Fortune Sacco, Vihiga Bullets. Barak, what was it like for you?
Yeah, we started slowly. But the kind of players that we have, we were sure we will achieve going to Premier League this season, because that was the initial agreement between the newcomers like us. We came for this team to go to Premier League, to help the team promoted, and we have achieved. Yeah.
Now you've said that there were targets that were given to you.
Yeah.
It means that you joined the club with a mission.
Yeah.
Tell us about your previous club and what you saw and what the change has been at Talanta.
I've been in NSL. I have an experience with this on this league. I've been with Ushuru since 2011. Yeah, I've been promoted with Ushuru, and now FC Talanta. In NSL, there's no shortcuts. You have to accumulate points early enough to help you. That's why we were promoted before even 4 matches were left. Yeah.
And Gicho, you know the story of Talanta, about how it was, picking young players, and tell us how these young players, how they've grown, vile mambo imebadilika kwa maisha yao over that time, considering that this is actually an investment by the government for this football club.
Kwanza ningetaka kushukuru CA, our main sponsor. Hiyo time walikuwa wanaenda county zote, wanachukua vijana wadogo, wanakuja wanaweka pamoja, tukaform team. Hiyo team ikakuja ikagrow, tukaingizwa kwa NSL. At least hizi hao vijana wamegrow. Hizi wengi wako na mafamilia, wamesaidika sana kimaisha, wameimprove talent yao, na pia kimaisha saizi at least wako mahali, si kama venye walikuwa hizo miaka zilizopita.
And as a footballer, umekuwa namna gani?
Ni footballer nimegrow sana. Nikiweza angalia hizo miaka zingine na saizi nimegrow sana massively. Kwanza hiyo time nilianzanga Thika, nikakuja saizi Talanta, nimegrow sana. Nimepitia makochi wengi sana, wamenifunza jinsi ya kujisukuma kwa industry ya mpira.
You've mentioned about, tell us just about, through each coach you've worked with. John Kabau, who picked you up from Thika.
Yeah.
He was also with Thika United at one point.
True.
Went to Bidco now at Talanta. He worked with you. And to the point now where you're working with Ken Kenyatta.
Makoch, kila coach akona philosophy yake. Kama makoch naweza pick makoch watatu nimewaka nao wakubwa hii Kenya. Kuna mmoja ni John Kamau, alinichukua kutoka shule, akanisign Thika United. Nikacheza, akaondoka, kidogo mimi nikatoka hapo, nikaenda Bidco United, nikapatana na veteran coach mwingine anaitwa coach Juma Abdalla. Pia yeye akakuja na philosophy yake, nikaongeza philosophy ya coach John Kamau na ya Juma Abdalla. Nikajoin Talanta, nikakuja nikapatana na veteran mkuu anaitwa Ken Kenyatta, akani-instill vitu zake na saizi ndo maana mimi niko hapa.
Sasa tuambie juu ya philosophy ya Kenyatta, Abdalla na Kamau. How the three coaches approach football.
Philosophy yao ni different. Kama one of them ni John Kamau. John Kamau anapenda tiki-taka football. Nipe nikupe, hiyo ndio ya John Kamau. Alafu kuna Juma Abdalla, yeye sana sana hutumia power play. Ken Kenyatta na yeye anatumia kila kitu. Ni mzoefu kwa industry. Amekaa, anajua, ana approach kila game na venye iko. Kama ni game ya timu wanapiga ball za juu, yeye anatuambia tuweke ball chini. Akipata timu yenye inaweka ball chini, tunawapea mpaka wanachoka. Ndio maana tumemanage kuwa hapo hivyo juu ya table.
Well, you've worked with Ken Kenyatta before.
Yeah.
Tell us about, that evolution, with you being with him in Ushuru and now at Talanta and his football methods.
Yeah, nimekuwa na Ushuru since 2011. Yeah, nilisign huko vile nilitoka Thika. Hizo miaka zote tumekuwa tukingangana kuenda kwa promoted. Vile Ushuru, we all know that tumekuwa tukingangana. So mimi namuelewa sana. Kwa na hizo miaka zote tumekuwa promoted. Yeah, tactically ina depend na opponent. Venye opponent wako ndo venye atatuambia vile tucheze. Ataweza tumia any player wakati wowote na vile tucheze kulingana na vile opponent wako. Yeah.
Now there's this point at which Barak, Ken Kenyatta just stood up, and this was just about a month ago. And I think my colleague Bernard Okumu went down over to Gem School where you were training and had a conversation with Ken Kenyatta, and he spoke about the push for the FKEF Premier League. What was it like for the last 12 or so games? Because you are playing, I think, every 2 days if you are playing in Nairobi, and outside Nairobi every 3 days.
Yeah, it's tiring, but vile coach Kenyatta preparation yake ndio imetu keep going. Sababu hakuna uvivu, lazima discipline, lazima kuje mazoezi. So that fitness ndio imetu push all through those matches. Sababu ilikuwa after every 2 games, 2 days, 3 days, lazima kuna game. So lazima ikuwe kuna wachezaji, depth lazima ikuwe kwa team, na hiyo ndio imetu keep going sana mpaka tukatoboa.
Now there was the case of Gicho, the case of 2020, when so much, within the league happened. The COVID-19 pandemic came and it affected how teams were playing. People went, the league was out for 7 months. Ni kama tu vile shule ilifungwa. I mean, after the quarterfinals of the FKF Cup around the 17th of March, it wasn't until November that we got football again at club level. What was it like for Talanta mkijua mko NSL with the probability of joining the FKF Premier League?
Kwanza venye tulisikia hiyo story ilituuma sana, sababu hiyo time tulikuwa na ambition ya kupanda ligi. So kitu tulifanya, tulifuata venye government ilisema, kwanza tukakaa nyumbani kidogo, lakini kuna program tulikuwa tunatumiwa na coach. Unaenda, kuna gym, kuna roadi, at least tunajikeep fit kabla sports zifunguliwe. Sio ndo kitu imetusukuma. Wengine kama wamelala, sisi tulikuwa tuna work silently.
Tuambie kwa hiyo silently when you joined Talanta, kwa sababu sasa uliwa join for this season. Ulikuta team iko namna gani?
Nilikuta team ilikuwa vizuri, sababu coach Kenyatta alikuwa already kuja Talanta. So kitote ilifanyika kuwa easy kwa mtu kama mimi kujoin wakina Gechu. ilikuwa at least nilikuja nikapata watu nimeshakuwa nao pia ushuru. So kujelin kublend pamoja ikakuwa ni rahisi. Yeah.
The competition that is there, start with Fortune Sacco, kila mtu ameiongea. Hizo mechi mbili mlicheza nao, mambo ilikuwa namna gani? Because those are the two teams that everyone was looking at to, as probable candidates for promotion to the FKFPL.
We knew, tulijua hiyo ni kama final kwetu, sababu mtu yoyote mnashindana naye hakuna mtu atawafungia, ni nyinyi mtahavu kuwafunga. So tulienda tukijua these are must win matches for us, na tulitoboa kuwafunga home and away Fortune Sacco, na ndio ilitukip malpatuko. Hiyo pressure at least tulimaliza nao mapema, kushinda mapema ilitusaidia sana, lakini tulijua ni mechi ngumu, preparation ndio ilitusaidia.
Kenya Police FC, we've seen a revival and coach John Bobby Ogola. Tell me about that.
Kenya Police ni team poa. Hii time tukipatana nao tulikuwa almost tumepanda. Ndio maana tukatoka draw na wao. First leg walingangana wakatufunga. Hakuna vile tungekubali watufunge games mbili. Team yote tulikuwa tuna chase nao promotion, hakuna team inaweza tufunga game mbili. Na basi tunajijua team yetu iko na experience enough ya kutusukuma hizo big games. Ndio maana hizo top 5 hakuna team imetufunga game mbili, ni either moja na waliangukia hiyo moja.
Football kuna kuangukia football.
Ndio. Kwa ni bad days au ameangukia bao kisi tumecheza vizuri.
Now let's talk about something in the FKF Premier League. That is where you're going to play in the coming season. Already tumeona Tusker. There's something Tusker did that not many people will talk about, averaging 2 points a game. And this is a Premier League pahali ambapo when we talk about the average number of points is something like 1.4. Ni league ya draw. What's the approach that you now have? Barak, you've got the experience of playing in the FKF Premier League. So when I talk about the draws aspect, you know what Rajwa vilikuwa huenda.
Kulingana na league venye pia mimi najua. League ni ngumu na kuna mtu anataka ku open game. That's why draws zinakuwa mingi sana. Watu wana sit back more, inakuwa ku score goals inakuwa ni ngumu sana. Hata team kupata bao mbili unapata ikipata moja, ina sit back. Ndio that's why draws zinakuwa mingi. Yeah.
Your approach to that, because now that you've gotten into that, it comes with a few other things. Television, there is more funding directly to the clubs from the TV money. For you as a person ambaye umekuwa Talanta, what is it that you'd like to see continuing with the club?
Talanta nataka waendelee tu kutusupport venye inafaa, na sisi tutaendelea kuwapatia good results. Premier League tunajua ni ligi tricky sana, wanaitanga League of Men. Sasa tushatoka League of Boys, sasa tunaingia League of Men. Na pia sisi wachezaji wenye tuko nao wengi tumecheza hapo hivyo Premier League, almost 90% washaikanyanga hapo hivyo Premier League. So tunajua pressure hapo hivyo Premier League venye tutaihandle.
Now, what is the risk of, losing some of the players ambao wamekuwa promoted now? I mean, I'll give a good example. Tusker FC, they've released 11 players. And that means there are gaps, na kuna wengine hata pengine Robert Matano has his eyes on some players, hata pengine wachezaji wengine wenu wako hapo, the focus is on them. You probably don't know if he's interested in signing them. Barak, what's the most important thing for the players who are there and those who may join?
Pande yangu mimi nasema mchezaji anajua Kenya anataka, so unapata watu kama si maybe tumekuja hii Talanta, ilikuwa ni about kuipeleka Premier League na kujaribu kucheza tuone itafikia wapi kwa ligi. About mchezaji kumove, ni mchezaji mwenyewe ndiye anajua na plans zake. Yeah, so ni venye mwenyewe ataona na venye deals ziko. Yeah.
What is the morale in the camp right now? Because I know you're moving on to a transition period before you go kabla muingie pre-season, so that you now prepare for the FKF Premier League season for 2021-2022. Gicho.
Morale iko juu zaidi, sababu watu wako excited sana kutoka NSL. NSL wanasemanga ni ligi moja ngumu sana, so morale iko juu kabisa. At least wanatoka hapo tuende tungangane hapo hivyo. Itakuwa poa sana tukienda kucheza timu kama Gor Mahia, Tusker, AFC. Ndio maana watu walegezi wana train hard.
Umesahau Bandari na KCB.
Zote nimesizitaja zote lakini zote ziko timu kubwa. Premier hakuna game rahisi. Timu zote ni ngumu.
FKF Cup, that's another competition. We've seen lower division sides win that FKF Cup. For example, Mathare United 23 years ago, they won it even before they went. I mean, as they were rising up. Cup competition, what's your experience from it?
Cup competition aina wenyewe na ndio inaonyesha kuna talent huku chini, sababu kama timu zinaweza kuja hizi Equity na Ivers na kuja zinasumbua timu kubwa inamaanisha kuna talent huku chini. So wachezaji sisi kujipush, inaonyesha kuna competition pia kwa country any level.
Gicho,
yes.
I want you to give some word to your teammates and those others ambao pengine wako na ile nia ya kuichezea timu ya Talanta. What's the word for them, because they should now know the competition will be stiff in the team.
Sawa, kwa wale watu wenye kwa team saizi nataka kuaje tujisukume sana. Tukiingia hapo hivyo Premier hatuendi kuleta mzaha, tunaenda kujisukuma kabisa, tungangane nao wanaume wenzetu. Na kwa wale wanatujoin, mkuje mkijua hapa hivi ni noma. Tunakuja ngangane na wanaume wenzenu. Ligi lazima tuingie, na tukiingia atuingie kama tumeteremka, tunaingia ku maintain hapo hivyo. Mwaka ya kwanza tukimaliza hata top 10 tutakuwa tumeachieve kitu. Hiyo mwaka ingine kulingana na strategy ya coach tutaona kama tutaenda top 3 hivyo hadi after sema kama period ya 3 years hivi tuone vile tutakuwa tunapambana kwenda kubeba hiyo trophy.
You've said here, Barak, kuna FKF Cup, that one has no owner.
Yeah.
Are you looking at picking that up, because every club in the country through the FKF Cup any club can compete at continental level just by winning that?
Yeah. Hata inasemekana hiyo ndio shortcut ya kucheza continental football.
Umesema ni ngumu, lakini sasa unaita shortcut.
Ni shortcut sababu game ni few. Ndio maana nasema ni shortcut sababu game ni few, knockouts. So kitu naweza sema hiyo cup tukipata opportunity ya kucheza tutajituma vile tunaweza. Tuko hapo kujituma, na pia vile tumepanda Premier League hatuko hapo kuparticipate tu. Tuko kuweka uzito, participate, tufunge matimu, tuone kama tunaweza maliza top 5. Yeah.
Well, a target has been set, a top 5 finish in the FKF Premier League, and this is from the Talanta FC players promoted to the FKF Premier League. By the time the club celebrates 10 years next, at the end of the 2022 season, then we shall know where they will be. Will they be playing, knocking on the doors of continental football, or will they be, mid-table or battling to go down? But they're saying they don't want to go down. Anthony Gicho, the top scorer on my far left, he scored 10 goals for FC Talanta as they got promotion to the FKF Premier League, and this was with 4 matches to go out. After 34 matches, they were on 68 points. They were 12 clear of their opponents at that point, 14 Saku. So they were on 56 points, and that meant that they were already promoted with the number of matches that were remaining. Barak Odiambo, assistant captain, he's been with them for a year, and coach anakuamini sana. Aliingia akaingia na wewe.
Nilikuja nikampata. Alikuwa shakuja beleni. Yeah.
So you've heard it from him. We know that Coach Ken Kenyatta is out of town. We would have been with him. We shall be taking a short break. But what's the administrative point of FC Talanta? Because it is an institution that is under the State Department for Sport. We've got Wanjiru Mahehu, who is the chairperson of Talanta FC. She will be joining us in just a short while and tell us about the outlook of the club, and from an institutional point, and how they're being sponsored, being a fully owned Ministry of Sports institution, the way forward for it, and how it can be used to tap youthful talent in just about 3 minutes' time.
将门轻掩上。
Montaigne, you have finally shown up.
Tell me, what is your demand?
It's simple.
Jingwu, get His Majesty out of here now. Hurry! Majesty.
Timur! Don't!
Mother! Mother!
因为当归入药汤，相思泪许的心头上。念儿了手在纸上，要饮时。
Quiero amarte de una forma diferente, de otro modo.
You told Celia that you would take care of that when she was about to leave them here. Right here. Here. Here.
It's because I don't feel right, Nora. I don't feel fine. I'm so sad. I'm so scared for Max's future, for mine, for my babies.
I guess. It seems like they're all after the same thing, but I really feel that they have very different reasons.
We're siblings. You're my sister.
My brother? You're my brother?
Vamos, recobremos los momentos de una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente, respetando tus espacios.
The excitement of the Olympic Games doesn't just stop there, as the biggest para-sports event, the 2020 Paralympic Games, gets underway from the 24th of August to the 5th of September in Tokyo, Japan. So, get ready to be inspired by these sportsmen and women with outstanding abilities, and look out for Team Kenya too in their quest for glory by watching all the highlights daily on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Kuambia hauna tena kuongea, nimesema mimi natukana. Maya baba kwa nakujali tena sana.
Kazi zimepungua, so I'll have lots of time with you.
Kazi zimepungua ama kids ama acha kukusumbua.
Babe, please.
Unaniongea vibaya lakini ukiniona mikono ya kuteleza vitu vishikike.
I cannot even breathe that. Hata sijui calling again wala sijui mama.
Sasa mwenzako ngekutuma, angalau upata mtu kuongea naye.
Kwa kuwa umeambiwa uko ndani sina mtu wa kuzungumza naye.
Nani?
Ushauri kile ninaotaka sasa ni kuhusu kazi zangu, kampuni yangu. Basi.
Rais Uhuru Kenyatta ameweka mikakati madhubuti na kuwekeza katika maendeleo ya nchi hii.
A government that bakes a national cake that shall be big enough for all to share equitably.
Miradi mingi imetekelezwa ili kuunda nafasi zaidi za ajira.
Umetuchagua hapa town kama sisi masafala tufanye hii kazi.
kuboresha maisha.
Hii mandemu imetufanya masuri, hatuwezi shikwa na njaa.
Na kustawisha taifa la Kenya.
Ujumbe wangu kwa Rais Kenyatta ni kwamba pongezi sana kwa kazi nzuri uliyoifanya, na nchi inakusupport wewe, na wananchi pia tunaridhika sana na kazi zako unazofanya.
Ungana nasi kwenye Project 254 kila Ijumaa saa 2:30 jioni kwenye runinga ya KBC Channel 1.
And welcome back to Sports Check on this Monday morning. It is the 30th day of August. The year is 2021. In conversations about football, basketball, there is a lot of vibe around basketball because of the national teams qualifying for the AfroBasket Championships, the Kenya Morans and the Lionesses, plus also esports. What is this thing about, everyone calls it PlayStation or the video games and all that. What's that industry about? What are the opportunities and also the stigma and the risks around it? How do you mitigate that? Those are conversations that we shall be having. But we get to the final part of our conversation about Talanta FC. It was started as an initiative of the Ministry of Sports and UNICEF, and a countrywide assessment of players was conducted for the recruitment process. And they were identified, associated with the National Youth Talent Academy, and the best of the best from that process formed Talanta FC, which later joined the national leagues. They were in the NSL for about 4-5 seasons, are going into from the 2015-2016 season, and have now been promoted to the FKF Premier League after topping the NSL 69. They've got an unassailable lead. They've topped the second tier of Kenyan football and will be going to play there. What's the journey and the concept of Talanta and how to keep it going? We're joined by the chair of Talanta FC, Wanjiro Mahehu. Wanjiro, welcome.
Thank you very much.
You have been with the club for the past 6 years. What has been the story since you sat in and looking at it as an initiative of the State Department for Sport?
We also accompanied by the Kenya Academy of Sports. It has been a fantastic journey. Yeah, we have gone around the country and working also with a state corporation called Kesha, which maybe many people don't know about it. Yeah, the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association. They have also been very
well. The Headmasters Association is well known.
Yes, exactly, and they have been there with us, and we've gone to we use scouts. So we get all the headmasters. So they bring us their students and we do trials at Kasarani, and that's how we have worked through this time. And so we do the trials and then we select, and we actually select coaches who come in and they're able to select the best players. Then that's how we form the team.
So from that formation of the team now has got to be sustained as a competitive edge rather than just an talent development unit. How then do you balance between the two functions?
What we do, we were lucky enough. Let me tell you, Communication Authority have really come through for us. They have come through for us in an amazing way. So they have sponsored us to the tune of 23 million shillings every year.
So that takes us about, what, 2 million a month?
It takes us about 2 million a month. Every game, I just want to give you the graphics of what, because sometimes people think 23 million, we are too rich.
No, 2 million a month for a squad of 30 is not.
35.
35.
Yeah. So what happens is every year, remember, we actually play in about 20 counties. So, I have to take care of the drivers, take care of the team, take care of the salaries, make sure they're paid on time. And that we have managed to do as FC Talanta. So it's been, it's as much as we appreciate everything that is being done. It's really quite, it's quite challenging sometimes.
You could just give us an overview of the cost of running this team,
a club
on a monthly basis, given that you've got to play about 4 or 5 matches when the season is on, and this includes when you've got to play a cup competition.
Let me tell you where the challenges are. The challenges are, first of all, you need to find a home playing field, because these guys have to train.
Yes.
Yeah. So you either have to pay for the stadium or the field. Yeah. Right now we are playing at James School, Cambridge. Yeah. Before that, we were playing at Kasarani. Now, because of they had their own expectations of what they were doing, so of course it became a bit difficult.
Yeah,
so
there was the under-20 championships.
There was the under-20,
and that meant that
there was Safari Rally. There was all sorts of things. So because of all those things, we had to find an alternative, Plan B. Yeah, we're always finding a Plan B. And because of that, now you have to find that in your budget. And maybe it was not something that you expected. You know?
Yes.
The other thing is, advertising costs. Your sponsor also expects you to give them visibility. So you pay a marketing agency. Yeah. And then there's the cost of advertising, the cost of... there are a lot of things that come with the game.
Something else that we noted is that this for the past 2 seasons or so, the National Super League has had a sponsor. How much does that mitigate in terms of a club's cost when they come in and the organization? I know at one point there was a time when clubs were being asked to pay referees. How much has it changed in terms of the cost per game for a club like Talanta, Police, or basically the 20 clubs in the NSL?
Now, let me tell you something. We are grateful for that sponsor, yeah? But we'd really like to get more sponsors on board. Reason being, even transport costs alone. Like now we have a bus, yeah? Which UNICEF and CA put together for us. It's been 7 years. We have to sell it. We have to sell the bus and put a deposit so we get a new bus. So some of these things become very difficult. These guys are shocking. I get tired watching them.
Why? I mean, they play 38 matches a season and probably about 5 or 6 cup games.
If you watch their game, I feel like I've lost 5 kilos just watching them, because they are so amazing, and the energy involved. After that, of course, there are costs involved. We appreciate all the work that they've done, because Kenyatta has done an amazing job. That one I will not take from him. Kenyatta has taken us to the Premier League. And he doesn't joke. He's an amazing coach. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. And, the discipline involved, the waking up in the morning, the training that's involved. They've really done, I don't know. I don't know what I can even say.
The other thing that I would like to mention now that you've mentioned, when Coach Kenyatta was hired, what were the terms of reference? Or the performance indicators that he had to go by at the end of this 2020-2021 season?
What we did is, okay, maybe I should go a little bit back. Maybe I'm taking you too fast.
Okay.
Is FC Talanta is run as a corporate.
Yes.
It's not run with emotions. Yeah? We have... focus this way?
Yes. No, you can continue. Just continue with the conversation. This way.
We run FC Talanta as a corporate. So you have... what you're supposed... We actually hired an HR team to recruit for us a proper coach, and who will take us to the Premier League.
Okay.
Because we said we have deliverables. We have to deliver. Yeah. So we signed contracts. All our players have contracts and they are signed. By the way, I will tell you, we actually have like about 3 players in Sweden
who are out on loan.
No.
Actually play now.
You see, FC Talanta, the thing about FC Talanta is we are supposed to take you further. I'm not supposed to hoard you. So these young gentlemen, if anybody wants them, they can go. Okay. But you pay me.
So it's not for free?
It's not for free.
You get the value and the development value that's behind that.
Exactly. And that is what FC Talanta was developed to be.
Now, the other question that's coming in, because over the weekend, we saw the CAF Women's Champions League qualifiers for the Sekafa region start. And there is a conversation that at the end of it all, every team that's in the top tier should strive to have a women's team alongside it. Given your relationship with the secondary school heads, what's the plan? What are the opportunities to have Talanta women?
Thank you very much for that question. By the way, we are actually working towards that. And we have been challenged by our sponsor to actually develop a women's team. That is something that we're really looking forward to. Yeah. What we're looking forward to is first to stabilize the boys, the young gentlemen. Yeah. The young players. We have Agakoro, which works with us through UNICEF. And Agakoro, we were fielding their players, by the way, and they are very good.
We know the story of Agakoro.
Agakoro came in very well. And so we wanted to stabilize that first. Now, once we're stable, because we didn't want to take on too much on our plate, and we don't support these guys.
Yes.
So once we are stable, then we can move on now to the girls segment, which is something that we're really looking forward to, because that will probably get even more sponsorship than the gentlemen. But we just want these guys to be stable first, then we can continue to the girls team. We support women. In fact, that is one of our platforms, is support for women and the young ladies.
You mentioned UNICEF and the social transformation work that would come with it, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund and Akakoro.
Yeah.
How has that relationship now helped you spread your wings as you do the tapping of the talent?
In fact, we wish we could do more, right? With UNICEF, they have come through for us, especially initially. Remember, we started in July 2012.
Yes.
That's when we started. And that time we were under NITA. And they really came through for us.
Actually, yes, NITA, just in case you just get lost, it's the National Youth Talent Academy.
Yeah. And that time, the head of UNICEF was a gentleman who really set up FC Talanta, and he really went out all of his way, called Mr. Kemanzi. Yeah. He's now working in Malawi. And so he really set up this thing, and he was very passionate about it. So, you know, and then after that, there was Mutua Mudusi, who's now working in Switzerland. And they are the ones who actually set up the platform for us. So without them, they really set up this whole thing for us. And we just took it over. Yeah.
What's now next for Talanta FC going into the next 2 or 3 years? Actually, before I get to that,
yes,
the activities around age grade sport were seized from a directive from the State Department for Sport. That's where Talanta is actually domiciled under. If you just look at it, the structure and the history. How has it affected the talent scouting program over the last 18 months?
You know, we've had issues with especially with COVID. Yeah, we were not able to really do scouting properly. We were working especially with the schools very well, and then we had, you know, schools have closed, this has happened, so it was a bit challenging, but through all that, we have still managed to get through the whole thing about especially the recruitment. We've been able to get through that process.
The outlook for Talanta FC for the next 3 years?
We want to partner with international companies, international sports organizations, international sports agencies, so that we give these young people an opportunity. And we're doing that through ministries, through our embassies.
Yes.
And we are going to reach out to all of them so that we can be able to get these guys opportunities out there. I'll give you an example. The other day I was speaking to Olunga.
Michael Olunga.
Yes. He started out in FC Talanta.
True.
Yeah.
Then went to Liberty Professionals, is where he went, made it his home, and was forever on loan to Kenyan clubs before he left for Sweden.
Ghost Mulei has been a big instrumental part of our journey. Yeah. Ghost has got a very good, what do I call it? Like, his professionalism has really helped FC Talanta, and he's our technical director. Yeah.
Okay. As well as the national team coach.
We are lucky like that, And he has really helped us. So we want to partner. We want to make FC Talanta, number one, a sports agency across the board. FC Talanta is supposed to be a sports agency for everybody. Whether it's football, whether it's volleyball, whether it's golf, whether it's whatever it is. Yeah. So that we can bring our young people, sports, even athletics, we can push them to the forefront. And that's what we aim to be. That's one of our strategic pillars. Number two, we want to welcome the world. And we thank you for this platform, because we can actually express ourselves and say, this sports agency will be able to push our people so that if you want to play for Qatar, we'll loan you.
A Qatari club, you can't loan somebody to a country. I wouldn't be loaned to a country I wouldn't accept.
Yes, but we want to bring opportunities out there in sports, because we are hoarding sports talent in this country. You guys are fantastic and you're really good at what you do, but we are not expressing ourselves out there in the world. People want Kenyan players, and this is a career.
Yes.
Look at these young people you were interviewing here just a few minutes ago. Yeah. If they are loaned, we will develop the talent, bring it up from the grassroots, and send it out there into the world, so that they can have a career. If this is what they want to do and they're passionate about it, we'll develop them, give them the discipline, and be able to take them out there.
The name Talanta is actually from talent, and that was the idea that was conceived at the start. And you've mentioned other sports. Are we going to see a volleyball club maybe coming up? Are we going to see a basketball club? Can we see an athletics team eventually that can be running, and depending on where they're located, get affiliated to Athletics Kenya? And we see, for example, some dominance of the National Police Service and the Kenya Defence Forces, being watered down in Kenyan athletics.
We are actually a development center. Look at us that way. The other thing, we are not a money-making club. All right? FC Talanta is for development. So whatever resources we get, like CA has come through for us as a development center, yeah? So we use those resources to be able to develop the club. We would love to do all these things if the funds are required. We have a very serious board. We are audited by KENAU, which is the Kenya National Audit Authority. And so we have the capacity to do all these things. All we need is support from government or any other international organization that can help us, because I know even other parastatals may be limited. But we have the capacity and we have the resources to be able to do that. You'd be very shocked. Ministry of Sports actually has the most, they really understand sports. What they lack is finance.
Now we got to knock on the doors of the Sports and Arts Development Fund for development, because that has been actually pinpointed as one of the things. Under 20 and national teams, that's a function of the fund.
Imagine, like now, there's, even if we look at Kenya CAS, for example.
The Kenya Academy for Sports.
Kenya Academy of Sports. You know, we had the under 20s, right? We have a whole building that has never been finished. People came from all over the world. Yeah? They should have stayed there. We finish. It's just because they're underfunded. If they're funded, they can actually do a very good job. They have the capacity and they're able to do it. And they're well managed.
Well, you know what? We'll talk to our friends at the State Department for Sports. We have a good conversation with them. You know, also, it's something we call the government-to-government relationship. And see that goes on and it happens. Thank you very much, Wanjiru Mahehu. She's the chairperson of FC Talanta, a development organization. And remember, their football club has gained promotion to the FKF Premier League 9 years after it was formed in 2012 as a development organization under the auspices of the State Department for Sport, working together with UNICEF. And through the years, talent has come through. And earlier we spoke with their top scorer in the 2020-2021 season, Anthony Gisho, and Barack Odhiambo, who is the assistant captain of the side, also scored 8 goals. We shall be taking a short break, and when we get back, more conversations around sport. There's basketball and e-sport to talk about. Is e-sport really a threat to conventional sport? And what about its economic value? Because some of the numbers I've come across, they would shock people. Let's do that after this short commercial break.
Nelly Simiyu is one of the most experienced para-athletes in Kenya who has graced major events in the past, including 2 Paralympic Games.
Ilikuwa 2004 nilirudishwa kwa hii mchezo na Henry Wanyoike. Nilikuwa shule siku hiyo, akakuja mpaka shule. Mimi nikakuja mpaka Kikuyuni Kitaru penye anafanyia mazoezi, brother yangu alikuwa hapo, nikaungana na yeye. Tukafanya hiyo mwaka 2004 tukaenda Athens. Nilikuwa nakimbia 100, 200. But 7 nilienda huko nikaona hiyo mbio iko so competitive sana. Nika change, use sasa ku practice ya 1500.
She started off with the sprints before she moved to the 1500 meters T13 for those with moderate sight.
2008 tulienda Beijing. Hiyo ilikuwa my first time sasa kucompete 1500. Nikakuwa number 5, kuleta medal. So after that nikakuja nikapata injury, nikakuwa off kiasi mpaka 2016 kwa nimepata hamstring ya mgongo. 2016 nikajaribu but sikuweza. Sasa daktari alikuwa ameniambia ndapona hiyo hamstring after 10 years. Sasa kuanzia 2019 ndio niliona ninarudi back to normal. So sasa ina hope ndaenda kucompete vizuri.
Her goal is to bag the gold this time round, having settled for the bronze in the previous events.
Nikatrainia 15 mpaka 2006, nikakuja nikakimbia World Championship, nikapata bronze. Tukaenda tukakimbia Dubai, nikapata bronze. Dubai nikakuja Tunisia, nikapata bronze. Sasa yenye tunaenda hope ndakimbia poa. Niko na hope ya kupata medal.
The legendary Henry Wanyoike may have retired after setting the pace, but Nelly Nasimiu is determined to carry on with the current generation from where he left come the Tokyo Paralympics.
Kufikia saizi tumefanya 3 time trial. Nimeimprove my time. Nilikuwa nimekimbia Tunisia mwezi wa 3 4:52. Nikakuja tukirudi saizi nakimbia na 4:23. So nimeimprove sana, mazoezi imekuwa mzuri. Coach wamecooperate na serikali pia imecooperate na tunashukuru. Tunaenda kukimbia poa, tuna hope ndio tumeimprove our time.
Hannah Mwangi will partner with Nasimiu to ensure they achieve all that to make the nation proud.
Safari yangu kwa michezo imekuwa very tough na imekuwa ya mazao, kwa maana nimeweza kushiriki katika Olimpiki ya 2008, but hiyo wakati ni kwa form 4 nilikuwa nafanya KBC, nilikuwa nafanya mtihani wangu wa mwisho wa kidato cha 4, but ni manage kuweka African record ya long jump because nilikuwa nafanya sprinting na long jump. Nilikuwa nafanya 100 meter, 200 meter and long jump, and ni manage kufika final, na ni kitu ya muhimu sana nilijifunia. Pia nimeingia katika All African Games. Nimeenda All African Games ya 206 hapo yenye ilikuwa inaendwa Morocco. Nikakuja tena nikaenda ya pili, nikaenda Mozambique yenye ni manage kukuja na bronze kwa 400 meter. Na nimekuwa nikishukuru Mungu cause kuwa a Paralympian it's a little bit challenging cause not a lot of sponsor wenye watakuja kumsupport, but our main sponsor amekuwa government. Kama recently tumeingia hapa kwa hii timu ya kwenda Olympic, tumeingia 2 months now, tunaenda almost mwezi wa 3 sasa, tukiwa tumewekwa katika hii kambi ya kufanya mazoezi, na serikali ndio imekuwa main sponsor wetu. Pia imekuwa ikitusaidia sana. Pia it is going to enhance how wachezaji wanaenda kupresent Kenya kwa Tokyo 2020. Pia ningependa kusema NPC tukiongozwa na kiongozi wetu Agnes Oroch amekuwa very supportive. Pia ningependa ku-urge companies wenye wanaweza kujoin Paralympian wanakuanga na a lot of challenges and wana need kusaidiwa kabisa hata kuliko watu wengine, but sisi hatujakuwa na hiyo usaidizi. Kama tunaweza kuwa na hiyo usaidizi, inaweza kuwa ya muhimu sana na tunaweza shukuru sana. For the team that is going to Tokyo, they are well prepared, I'm a sparring partner, but pali tumefikia hiyo miezi 2 tukiwa hapa training, tumekuwa tukifanya mazoezi kabisa. Hata tuna hope that ile medal italetwa na everybody, tutaleta more than that, and tuko very few and we are very determined.
Is celebrating 10 years of existence, and that function is taking place today and will be graced by Cabinet Secretary Professor Margaret Kobia. And also, information that has come in is that the Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe will brief the media on the update of the COVID-19 situation in the country, and this is at 1 p.m. a briefing on how the country, where the country is at the moment. Are the numbers easing? The last check was that the statistics revealed showed that the country was at about 7.5% of the infection rate from the numbers released yesterday. What are the mitigation factors and also the vaccination exercise that is going on? How many people have been reached? So those are some of the stories that our team is looking out for. And also our reporter Fred Moki is at Riyadh House. Kenya is to host the Keep Keno Classic. This is a continental tour gold series of world athletics. What are the plans that are there in place after the Under-20 Athletics Championships? What's in store for Kenya? What can we see happen at what turns out to be a national championship, but also with a lot of international flavor? Some of the stories that we are keeping tabs on, plus the Paralympics also. One bronze has been won today, and our reporter, our colleague, senior colleague, Elena Shiveka, is in Tokyo, Japan, and gives us a daily brief on the Paralympics. And remember that you can also get to watch 52 minutes of the best action from the Paralympic Games Tokyo 2020 on KBC Channel 1 every day at 10 p.m. and on Sunday, the 5th of September, at 2 p.m. Join us as we give you the closing ceremony of the games that keep moving on, the Paralympic Games Tokyo 2020 on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner. We continue with our conversation this morning and we move on to basketball. And there is a story about a conversation about basketball that started about let me just say around 2018. Kenya qualified for AfroCan, which is the second tier of continent championship basketball. Kenya went out to Mali and they finished second behind the Democratic Republic of Congo. Wins against Tunisia were so huge that the buzz around that team got so big. When the final was televised, the Nyayo National Stadium Gymnasium was packed to capacity. Then follow up with that, with Kenya qualifying for the Afro-Basket Championships that are going on in Rwanda. They won against Mali yesterday, and that means they get one more game. This is a pre-quarter-final encounter against the team that they beat to get, to advance forward. South Sudan, they play against them tomorrow in a pre-quarter-final match, which means that the teams atop the four pools have got extra days of rest. And that's a conversation that we want to have, plus also women's basketball and how to keep this momentum going, not just for the fans, but for the sport. I'm joined by a person who's played for the Kenya Lionesses, so she knows what it is like to represent and the country, don those colors and the pressure that comes with it. Cynthia Mumbo, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
A coach who's always, who always gets to see these players. Zedekiah Onganga, he coaches Riara and also works with Vikapu. Good morning.
Good morning.
And I'll talk about, the policy and the thinking behind some of these things from later to you, Cynthia, and more of the technical aspects. But so far from the Afro-Basket Championships, Kenya going after 28 years, from each one of you, what has been your experience as, watching from Nairobi as the team played the matches against Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and against Mali yesterday? I'll start with Cynthia.
First, let me correct. I didn't play for the Lionesses. I was team manager for the Lionesses.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Right. No problem at all. I think it's important to be clear. I'm very excited about what the guys have done. Now, you have to give credit to the team, the management team, and the consistency that the players have shown on the court. So there's one thing I've seen that I've not seen in a long time. It's heart. These guys are coming on the court and they really are hungry to deliver, and they're hungry to get in there and win, and that's something that is extremely commendable.
And from a coaching perspective, what is the change you've seen with the national team at this championship?
I think it's growth. They've really grown over time. Remember 2 years ago, there was that momentum, there's the fusion of new players in the team that has gone so well. And one impressive thing is when Coach Liz Mills was talking about the future, and he was mentioning players like Fidel Okoth, who plays for Strathmore. He was mentioning about Fahim, who plays for the Thunder, Derek, who plays for Ulinzi. So these are some of the new players who will be seeing in the coming future. And as a development coach, I'm so proud of the step she's taking.
Well, Zedekiah has spoken, and Liz Mills did speak after the first game against Cote d'Ivoire. And one of the things she spoke about and was quite clear about is that at times when you play a game, then there's an opponent to beat. and you hardly lose to an opponent. But in the case of Cote d'Ivoire, they lost to themselves. Let's listen to Liz Mills speaking after the opening AfroBasket championship game against Cote d'Ivoire. Coach Liz Mills speaking, the press conference at the AfroBasket Championship.
We are the commissioners. Now you may know them, so that when you meet them, you can greet them, give them a high five, because they did very well. The commissioners were Koki Muli, who was also served in our office in New York. We have Professor Winnie Mitula, still at the University of Nairobi. Professor Jacqueline Oduo, who is a senator.
Look, I think it's all about us just tightening up our offense, being able to handle that pressure. I actually don't think Cote d'Ivoire beat us, we beat ourselves. We were in it for 35 minutes. They're not a team that I think is a lot better than us. They'll be the toughest team in our group. So, tightening up on offense, only allowing one shot defensively, really locking down on that area, and this would be a different game.
Well, there you've had it from Coach Liz Mills, and one of the things that she's spoken about, Zedekiah, is execution, and says, look, for about 30 of the 40 minutes, Kenya played really well, but the other minutes blew off. I'll be specific about the Cote d'Ivoire game. Quarter 3, the start of it, and quarter 4, the end of it.
I think she has also brought something, and that is a high-intensity game. So I do believe down that stretch, the players were a bit fatigued, and that is why we caused the turnovers and everything. But I think she was able to address it in the Mali game, because remember, also against Mali, it was a high-intensity game, and we have also seen players being rested, and the rotation has been so well. That is one thing I commend about, because if you see the Mali game, we saw Griffin.
Yes, he had 12 points in the game.
Yeah, he showed up, but this is a player that didn't show up in the game against Cote d'Ivoire. So I think for Cote d'Ivoire, it was a very, very experienced team, and the way they've carried themselves out up to this particular time, they're a surprise package. Even yesterday when they went all out and beat Nigeria, they really, really shocked people.
Okay. Cynthia, your reaction to what the national team coach has done, and you've also mentioned, Zedekiah has mentioned about the intensity in the game. How different is it from what we would see normally at the Nyayo National Stadium or Kasarani or USIU?
I think there's a very big focus on statistics. So you can tell she's really looking at what players are doing on the court. And reading the stats. So one of the things that I think she realized is the average turnovers was 24, and so they worked on the turnovers. This past game they had 19 turnovers. That's a coach who's in tune with what's happening with players on the court, and I think that has been a major difference in terms of really understanding what player brings what onto the court. And how they're able to use their positive points to be able to deliver the team. The other thing I've realized is there's actually really good team chemistry and teamwork, and she's been able to work around that to make sure that the team is working commendably. Initially, we were relying heavily, and she was relying heavily, and the team was relying heavily on Tyler. And Tyler is a star. We have to give it to him. Whether the team's doing well or not, he's amazing. But Odera came through, a young lad who has been doing, he stepped up when I believe it was Nigeria.
Yes,
when Nigeria held on Tyler. He was a surprise player. And then, in the game with Mali, the other team didn't understand Griffin. So, Griffin took over, and the coach was encouraged and saying, look, they don't know. I actually remember one of the commentators saying, who is this guy? And those of us, where has he been?
He's
our Kenya one.
He's the KBF League Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, we call him Kenya one.
But I also think that came into play because remember the two assistant coaches.
Yes,
I've coached him at the Thunder.
So that is
Sadat Guy and Abelson.
Yes.
So I think they understand at what point they needed to bring Griffin, and he stepped up to the show.
Yeah. I want to also talk about the Lionesses, and we've seen, Mercy Wanyama and Victoria Reynolds push this side. Eventually, it was, let me say, it was the worst start any team would want to have at the Zone 5 qualifiers in Rwanda. But eventually, it looks like in a normal scenario, they would not have qualified if it was just round robin. But when the semis were called, a different team came up. What's the story here that we've got?
We have to give it to the girls. I think I was one of the people who really heavily criticized the team. And I have to apologize to them because I honestly criticized the team heavy on the first game. And they came out and they said, those of you who are speaking, all this trash, we're here to show you who we are. A lot of them had not played together. I think with COVID, they had not played any, technical game together. Right, so they literally came from training, it wasn't a long period, and boom, they were in the games. So they had to learn their chemistry. Many of them came from very different places. So you can imagine putting in a team, getting onto the court, and learning each other while you're on the court. You've not had a proper opportunity to really experience each other. So I think that is where the biggest challenge was. But eventually, they got their confidence really high up there, and they went all in and decided, what, each of us has something that we're bringing on this table. Victoria, I've never watched Victoria play. Her father is a former international. She comes from a very strong basketball background. She really, took it in and went out there. Okal's sister, Koranga. Felmas. Absolute star. She stepped up and played the game that she's been learning to play in the US. And all the other girls, they came in and they said, look, we've lost. That game is gone. We're coming back onto the court and we want to show what we're made of. And that absolutely they did.
And it now brings up the conversation. And you can, let me digress, move away from basketball, move to football. So, my apologies. If we go back to between 1988 and 1992, Kenya qualified for 3 consecutive Cup of Nations, Africa Cup of Nations. Kenya was a top 10 country. In 88, there were 8 teams. In 90 and 92, there were 12. And the qualification process was brutal. It was knockout.
Yeah.
But there is a story behind it. The development program that was set up through the Olympic Youth Centers in 1974. It's only 14 years later that people came to realize the fruits of it. That system collapsed. It took 12 years for Kenya to qualify for another AFCON. So with that in the background, Zedekiah, you're the development coach.
Yes.
What needs now to be done to ensure that the momentum that's been built, 28 years, especially for the men, 28 years is a long time. It's an entire generation.
It's quite a long time. If you say that I was 2 years old. So that tells you how long the wait has been. But I think people slept on the job because people just relaxed and they were like, okay, we're here, we'll dominate, we'll do. But they don't understand that when you guys qualify for that qualifiers or that tournament, it means more work for you. There's no time to go, sit back, relax, win now, celebrate now, but tomorrow we start working. Like now, the momentum is so good. They've qualified, they're playing. We play South Sudan, we win, we go to the next level. We lose, you come back home. But what next when you come back home? So that is the big question. And if we're gonna wait for the tournaments or the qualifiers to start preparing the national team, then it's gonna get crazy. We're gonna get knocked. We have to look at, if we look at now the rankings, world rankings, we're 111.
Yes.
Uganda are 95. South Sudan are 92. If you look at Rwanda, they are around 93 there, about. All the East African countries are ahead of us, you see, in terms of world ranking. So it means if we go back and sleep, it means we're going to even fall back in the pecking orders. So the federation needs to come up with a youth structure, which is a national structure, whereby all these academies that are working and training basketball players, they can be fed into that and they can be groomed. Remember, when you go to Senegal, they have the seed. When you go to Nigeria, they have the power forward. When you go to Angola, they have the, I'm forgetting the name. When you go to South Africa, they have the ball in motion. All these are programs, national programs in those countries that are set up to ensure that the best of the best in those countries get there. Once they get there, they get opportunities abroad. And that is when they come back to play in this continental championship, they're way ahead of us.
Cynthia, yeah, you want to say something about that?
Mm-hmm. I agree with him until they say they go to play abroad. I know that abroad is such a big deal. Vikapu, we started Vikapu. Vikapu is local, and I'm not saying Vikapu is the only one. There are very many local ones. So I'm in absolute agreement with him. The other day, the KBF set up a league for under 14. I think that's absolutely commendable. We have a very strong high school basketball system.
Yes.
The question then lies is, what is the basketball strategy that we have? What is the basketball structure that we have? I mean, a lot of the young guys that you're seeing playing in the national team today, you have to give credit. Many of them played in the high school league. Many of them played, and then they went outside. But then locally, what is happening? What does the current local league look like? How valuable is it? Does it encourage players to want to play, to become better? So are we maintaining the best here? It's expensive to take players outside and to bring them. I think one country that has done really well by having localized systems is Angola. And there you can see they also slept because they became very big. They became so big for so long, and everybody was building around them. Everybody was looking at them and saying, we are going to beat Angola. Cape Verde learned their basketball in Angola. A lot of the players from, and you can see what they did. Mozambique learned their basketball from Angola. So a lot of guys, the Angolan basketball system got comfortable, which is what happened to Kenya. We got comfortable because we were top 10 in the world, top 10 in Africa at some point.
Actually, number 2 or 3 in Africa. I think only Senegal could beat Kenya at one point.
Yes. Commendable work being done. There's always room for improvement. So my take has always been, what are those gaps? What is the gap around development? Is it infrastructure? Is it access to that infrastructure? Is it a system? A nationalized system. What's our play, right? What's our basketball play? Is it coaching? Do we have enough capacity and capability? Do we have the right people? Are we growing the right people? Is it referees? Are we training enough referees so that our players get to learn what that means getting into a system? So, when you talk about structure, you're not just talking about structure for the sake of, there's a game being played and you have under 14 and under 16. What's the ecosystem around this structure that will make, this development work?
Now, let's talk about actually when you talk about the courts, and for you as a coach, let's think Nairobi and around, how much of access to some of these, because most of the places you'd find a basketball court would be a high school in this country. What's the access to this to, say, members of the public outside of the normal, the school period, and the right entry point for someone who wants to be, a serious basketballer?
I think we must be intentional, and our intentionality starts with building infrastructure. And this is something that the sports ministry needs to be very, very keen on. For an example, we only have 2 international stadiums in Nairobi, which is absurd. We need to have like 10 or 15 national stadiums in Nairobi. So I was listening to an interview yesterday.
Okay, Zedekah, let me just interrupt you.
Sorry.
And we'll be coming back to that about infrastructure and how to merge that. Also, we are keeping up with stories that are happening all around the country, and the National Gender and Equality Commission is celebrating 10 years of existence. So let us now listen in to the celebrations of 10 years of the existence of the National Gender and Equality Commission, a function that's being graced by Cabinet Secretary Professor Margaret Kobia.
Principle adherence. The Constitution is very clear in Article 27, Sub-Article, 8 and 6, and we are not relenting on that. We have gone further to petition our National Assembly and said, as you vet, just remember, we shall require 2/3 adhered to. We don't know the outcome yet. We are waiting. We hope we don't have to run to court. We hope it will be adhered to. We also issued advisory when it came to the whole idea of recruitment of the Chief Justice and judge of the Supreme Court. Why? 2/3 again must be adhered to. I know at that time there was a lot of talk, but I'm glad they adhered to that. There is the State Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture and Blue Economy. And we saw an advert which went up. And the Kenyans are very good. When they see some adverts that are discriminatory, they bring to our attention. It was said, deep sea, whatever it was, only men were required to apply because women cannot do it. Nobody asked the women whether they could do it or not. And nobody knew the capacity of women. And therefore, we had to write to the then principal secretary, and they had to redo that advert. Otherwise, somebody cannot just go out and discriminate openly, and we keep quiet as NGEC. In the times of COVID, we issued an advisory to the Ministry of Health on inclusion of sign language in services during routine public briefings on COVID-19 pandemic, the caseload prevention of COVID-19 infections, and availability of services, including isolation and quarantine. I'm very happy with our own CS, Mutai Kagwe. You have seen there's always somebody signing when they are giving those briefings, just to ensure inclusion. Most of the advisories have led to the review of the discriminatory actions and consideration of corrective measures to reduce exclusion of SIGs in major opportunities. And this is something that we are really proud of. I can stand here and tell our SIGs they will not be discriminated as long as we are in existence. So you better pray for long life of NGEC so that discrimination may die. The other area is facilitating national and county governments as well as the private sector to mainstream issues of gender, youth, older persons, minority and marginalized groups in the development and business sector. Now, we realize this one, you can't go beating people. What you do is provide standards, guidelines, handbooks, model tools. And just to mention a few of those tools that we have provided. One of them is the handbook for legislators on equality and inclusion in law-making process, what you may refer to as public participation, so that no one is left behind. It was actually launched, I still remember, it was launched by Ken Lusaka in if my mind serves me well, that was in 2018. We have also done the guidelines for county government leadership, integration of gender equality, inclusion in county development issues. This booklet was first done by my predecessor in 2015, and we realized that we needed to revise it, and we did that in 2019 because we consider that one to be key. The other one we have done is mainstreaming principles of equality and inclusion in business sector. I'm reading this because I can see our own Eva Muraya is here and is privy to those guidelines. We also did guidelines on mainstreaming of issues of youth, PWD, women in annual public performance contract processes. In fact, we are now moving on to ensure that in this area, people get their certificates, those who have done very well. I will not name all of them, but the last one I will name in this category is guidelines for managing and establishing equality and inclusion technical working groups. We realized in the short run, NGEC is not going to be in every county.
Well, there you've had from the chair of the National Gender and Equality Commission, Dr. Joyce Mwikali Mutinda, who is speaking at a function where the National Gender and Equality Commission is celebrating 10 years of existence. Well, our sign language interpreter within these hour is Lensa Odingo. And we continue with our conversation about basketball and development. We are with Coach Zedekiah Onganga. And Coach, infrastructure in this country and secondary schools are primarily the place where anyone can get a basketball court in the country. How much of it is required, and at what point do you transition most of these people from the development point to now competitive courts where I think in the country we'll be talking about 4 or 5. I mean, Makande, I think we'll be talking about Makande, Nazarene, and Kasarani, 3 of them. And Nyayo.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, we need like about 10 to 15 international stadiums only in Nairobi, and across the country close to 100, because infrastructure plays a very big role. As we were on a break, somebody was just texting me, I should talk about infrastructure in Naivasha, in Nakuru. You see, these are towns that are doing so well in terms of basketball development, but they lack infrastructure. Yesterday I was listening to some conversation when Jimmy Wanjigi was being interviewed that Kenya was supposed to be gifted national stadia, but they said no. And they say that gift us a road. And that really pained me, because this could have changed so many lives. So we need to be very intentional. For an example, the expressway that is being constructed, the guy is going to make a profit of close to 106 billion. And part of that should be the guy who is getting all that profit. He needs to build infrastructure. Build us another Nyayo Stadium, which may cost you around 24 billion. You see,
that give back through that fund.
Yeah, that fund. And when I see our sports CEOs in these meetings, them having conversation and stuff, these are the deals that she's supposed to be.
All right, we'll take a look at that conversation and pass it on. Now, something else that people ask. At what point do you introduce somebody to basketball if you're going to sustain this momentum, Cynthia? Because we've got, I mean, we know in Kenya, unless you've got the advantage of an environment where there's a basketball court, for everybody else, it's secondary school.
Yeah, I started playing basketball at 13. So, and in the US, that's old.
Too old, yeah.
That's too old. So, I mean, I think we've seen what the NBA is doing in Africa. I think they have 49 or 50 junior NBA leagues running across the continent, which is fantastic. Some of them are 16. I think when we ran ours in Kenya, it was under 14 and 14 to 16. So, you know, that's where Africa is. But if you have access to a ball, give that kid a ball at 3 years. Give that kid a ball at 4 years, at 5 years. Vikapu starts from 6 years onwards. So, you know, the sooner you introduce a child to, you know, the opportunity, the better. I'll just touch on infrastructure, because I think it's very important. Our problem is we constantly think about government putting up infrastructure. Anywhere else in the world where sports works, sports is a private entity. As much as government supports, especially through policy, we need to get to a point where I can put up a basketball court because I can sustain it as a business. You know, I can sustain it as a business. I can own a franchise. I can own, so that facility does not just support me as a business person, but supports the community around. If you have a basketball court in a proper basketball court in Kisumu, I mean, look at the data. Who are the tallest people in this country? We don't even have an indoor court.
Actually, in Kenya, they say they're from Kajiado and Narok.
But even then, let's put an indoor basketball facility in Kajiado and Narok, and give those guys an opportunity to jump inside that basketball court. Because if you build it, they will come. And if you build it, they will come from 3 years old, because they will see, you know, I want to be like this person, or I want to go and play in that space. That's one thing that we haven't been able to get right. Government's job should not necessarily be to build stadium. They should be an enabler so that we are able to build these stadia as private entities.
Usiseme serikali saidia tena. Sema serikali facilitate. Yes. So here is something else. You're a coach. What is the transition as you come to, from say 14 to 16 to 18 by the time somebody is 20? What are the things that they should know as they progress, such that if they're called up to the national team, you won't have to teach them how to do a free throw?
Yes, like us from Vikapu, we use a sports model called the long-term athlete development. So this is a model that programs a player's growth. So from 5 years, there are skills that they need to have learned. By the time they're 12, it means they can shoot, they can dribble, they can with both hands, they can have their crossovers. Now they're starting to learn what are called set plays, whereby they come on transition, they set the ball moves one direction, somebody comes, sets a screen. By the time they're 14, now they're being exposed to structured competitive games. By the time they're 16, now they can start playing internationally structured game, at least 70, 60 games per year. By the time they're 18, it means they're good to go. When they're called the national teams, you don't have like to come, tell them that do this, dribble with the left or what, because they've gotten the exposure, they have traveled, they've played in all sorts of environments. So at the end of the day, by the time they're now in their senior national team, they're ready to execute. Now that is now the performance stage and competition.
The whole a whole changing scenario in the country. We're seeing Cynthia to close, and I want you to say this. The basketballers who've come through the school system, there are those who've had scholarships in the United States. We can mention basically this Morant's team that we've watched play. They've come through the school system and got basketball scholarships. Others are playing pro basketball outside the country. What are the opportunities for those who've come through the school system to come and play for the national team, inspire, and also be part of the development?
Well, I think first things first is that they need to understand that their role is to inspire, right? I mean, I come from a very commercial background, so I always speak on it this way because if you empower a player, what does empowerment mean? That they can pay their rent, they can live their life through sport. We need to move our sport locally to that level. Everybody who wants to play and go and play outside. It's not sustainable locally. We need to create a sustainable environment where we have players playing here, and that will inspire other people, and that will inspire younger players. If I can be able to ply my trade locally, and people can see me. I mean, when I watch sports news, I think this is one of the very few sports media platforms where we consistently talk about local, football, local basketball, local volleyball, local. You can imagine if we had 100 of these on all different platforms. People can see that. And so inspiration comes from what is it that's going to make my life better. And we can't run away from that. But ultimately, I believe the players like Okal are doing amazing stuff beyond just supporting. I think he started an academy as well.
Yes.
Beyond, running his academy, he has a magazine, he has a media platform where he's pushing this, and he's got I think I saw him got the blue tick the other day.
Yes,
the blue tick. So
yes, he got that blue tick, and he's putting out of business with the Doctor magazine.
Yes, exactly, with the Doctor magazine. He is the doctor. So let's encourage more players. I believe Tyler is working around his brand, and he's going to be putting something out soon. So there's, the business is not just them being on the court. There's so much more that they can do that can be able to inspire young people. But that ultimately goes into what comes into my pocket and how comfortable am I that will be able to inspire other young people.
Well, thank you very much, Cynthia Mumbo, CEO Sports Connect Africa, former team manager of the Kenya Basketball Alliance, and she's also worked with the Kenya Basketball Federation within the executive in marketing and strategy. Plus, also, she ran for the presidency earlier this year. Well, and she has a lot of stories to tell about how she campaigned in a week. That's a story for another day. Zedekiah Ngonga, coach of Riara University and also a development coach with Vikapu. Thank you very much. And we take a quick short break, and we'll come back. I want you to think of 9 billion shillings that revolves around a sporting industry in this country. 9 billion shillings, and this is not just a sport where you'd ideally think of it. So I'll give you 3 hints. You can do it anywhere you are, anytime you want. Think of which industry that is that's circulating 9 billion shillings in the Kenyan economy.
Nikikwambia hauna time ya kuongea, nimesema mimi natukana. Maya, babako anakujali tena sana.
Kazi zimepungua, so I'll have lots of time with you.
Kazi zimepungua ama kids ama acha kukusumbua.
Babe, please.
Unaniongea vibaya lakini ukiniona mikono ya kuteleza vitu vishikike.
I cannot even breathe that. Hata sijui calling again wala sijui mama nani.
Sasa mwenzako nikikutuma, angalau upata mtu kuongea naye.
Kwa kuwa mambo uko ndani sina mtu wa kuzungumza naye.
Nani?
Ushauri kete na utaka sasa ni kuhusu kazi zangu, kampuni ya. Bas.
Quiero amarte de una forma diferente, de otro modo.
You told Celia that you would take care of that when she was about to leave them here. Right here. Here. Here.
It's because I don't feel right, Nora. I don't feel fine. I'm so sad. I'm so scared for Max's future, for mine, for my babies.
I guess. It seems like they're all after the same thing, but I really feel that they have very different reasons.
We're siblings. You're my sister.
My brother? You're my brother?
Vamos, recobremos los momentos de una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente, respetando tus espacios.
The 2016 Paralympic Games in Rio, where Kenya won 3 gold medals, a silver and 2 bronze medals, to inspire John Lokedi to book his ticket to Tokyo, where he hopes to better that performance.
Michezo nilianzia mwaka huu, nilianzia mwaka jana kule Morocco. Corona ikaribu kila kitu, tukarudi nyumbani. Hadi mwaka huu michezo ikafunguliwa, tukajiandaa tena, tukaenda qualifying ya kujiprepare kwenda Tokyo, na tumefanya mzuri kwa hiyo qualification. Hadi saa hizi tunaona si mbaya kwa mazoezi, tunaweza enda kule Tokyo tulete medali. Tumejiprepare sana kwenda kumbina wenzetu kule Tokyo, na tumejiandaa mzuri sana.
The 5,000 meters and 1,500 meters T13 athlete has competed in various international meets before his debut in Tokyo.
Kuna wa coaches wale wamewahi kukimbia kitambo na amekuwa wa coaches wamekuwa na experience, akatufunza. Kuna michezo ya walio changamoto ya macho, hili nikakuja nikajiprepare, nikafanya mazoezi, nikakuja hasa kukombina wenzangu, nikaona hii talenta yangu ni mzuri sana, nikajijua sasa kumbe niko naye talent, ndio nikaendelea kufanya mazoezi. Performance tulikuwa siku ya Morocco 2020 ilikuwa position 1 kwa 5,000, na tukarudi kule Dubai mwezi wa Januari nikakuwa position 2, tukarudi Tunisia mwezi wa 3 nikakuwa position 1, nilifanya mzuri sana. Naona kwa mazoezi yangu si mbaya vile.
The visually impaired athlete has been training at Karura and Kasarani with his compatriots, all determined to make sure they make the nation proud when they get to their marks at the National Stadium in Tokyo.
Ni itakuwa mara ya kwanza kuingia kwa international, lakini kwa hali sikuweza kuparticipate vile kwenda kuelekea kukombina wenzangu kwa sababu sijakuwa na sijamake kwa hii timu ya kwenda Olympic, na mimi ni train partner kwa wenzangu wenye qualify kuelekea kule Olimpiki. Lakini hawa nimeona ni watu wazuri sana, wamefanya mazoezi ya kutosha, naona anaweza enda kutuletea medali.
And welcome back to Sports Check on this Monday morning. It's the 30th day of August 2021. It's a day when the National Gender and Equality Commission is celebrating 10 years. And Timothy Kipdusu is our reporter there and he's going to give us that story. Plus, Benson Robert speaking to people who are involved in agribusiness, the cost of animal feeds and what it means for the country. We need to get into a Benson Robert will be giving us that story. Plus, Purity Musea will be catching up with the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Mutahi Kagwe, at around 1 p.m. and giving us an update on what the country's COVID-19 situation is in terms of, caseload plus vaccinations and also the management protocols. Right now, let's get into sport and have a conversation. I gave a hint about a sport that you can play anywhere, anytime, and the economic activity around it is worth 9 billion shillings at today's exchange rate. And this is from a PwC report that was commissioned, and that was about 2 years ago, and the growth is said to be phenomenal in the country. At that point, it was $83 million. Well, let's talk about esports, and we're talking about gaming. That is what you'd know. People who play with the consoles, on the computers, and different things. And to speak about that, we've got a professional gamer in the country, one of the best in the country. She goes by the name of Sylvia Wahome, but she uses the name Queen Arrow. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Why the name Queen Arrow?
In high school, I was a fan of the American TV series Arrow, based on the comic book character Oliver Queen. So I took his name Queen and his pseudonym as Arrow to make the name Queen Arrow.
Now that explains a lot as to why anyone who's anyway, when you look at the gaming and comics, they seem to go hand in hand. And then we've got an esports event organizer, Ronnie Lusigi. Ronnie, good morning to you.
Morning to you, to Wahome.
Yes. Let's start with this figure of 9 billion shillings, because the first time I think I got that report and mentioned it to me, and I read it and I said, wait a minute, I didn't think it was this big. That's a budget of a ministry in Kenya. 9 billion shillings. What's it all around, these 9 billion shillings?
Yeah, thank you, Wahome. So basically, what we are looking at when you say 9 billion shillings, you are looking at the whole video gaming ecosystem in our country. Now, esports is just a part of it, which is now competitive organized gaming. So when you say the 9 billion figure, you are looking at people playing mobile games, you are looking at people playing PC games, and of course the most popular in our country, we're looking at people playing console games, which are PlayStation. So it's basically the 30 shillings, 40 shillings someone pays to go to a gaming cafe. It's the 100 bob or $1 that someone pays as a microtransaction when playing online. And it's the 6,000 one pays to buy a game, maybe FIFA. Holistically looked at now as a video game industry, it gives us the figure of 9 billion. But now esports is now the competitive side of this video gaming, which is now upcoming in our country.
And talking about esports in the country, one, I think, phenomenon that really came up was Kenya were going to play against the Comoros, and you organized this contest between Victor Wanyama and Arnold Origi. What was the response to that? Because that's what we got on the screen. I mean, and thanks for sharing those videos that you gave to us. What was the impact of this on the general gaming industry when you've got the two internationals playing a football game on a console?
The response first was very good, but it was also informed with the community. What we were trying to do for that time with the national team was to engage with this youthful audience, people who their first interaction with sport is digitally. A child will play football on PlayStation when he's 4 years before he's gone to the pitch. So we were looking at this youthful audience, and we streamed it on Facebook. It was a FIFA game, and we had over 25,000 people coming in to watch. And also we also had an advertiser there, so there was a little bit of revenue, but it was informed around that even it as a sport, there are aspects about it, the physical sport, that you can learn from the esports side of it. So that's why we took our captain, Victor Wanyama, who's a very huge gamer himself, though a casual gamer, I would say, and also Arnold, who was returning at that time to the national team. So we were just trying to, at this moment, it is also being used to promote football as a sport, because if you stay behind, as the professional athlete will tell you, globally, simulation sports is very much behind, like fight titles or MOBA or first-person shooter games.
All right. Now let's come to you. So they use the name Queen Arrow, and you're a professional e-gamer. How did you get into this, such that you earn a living by, twiddling your thumbs on a console for quite some time?
I've had the background in that I've been gaming since like I was 3 years old. I started with the old school duck shooting games and the 8-bit games like Super Mario and Contra, just to mention them. Then that's now through the influence of my elder brother and my cousin. Then we used to spend our holidays playing Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, King of Fighters, Tomb Raider, and Tekken, just to mention a few. Then when I went on to uni, in 2017 I remember looking up gaming tournaments that were available in Nairobi. Then I saw that the East African Gaming Convention was holding the first Mortal Kombat tournament. I just decided to sign up on a lark because it's Easter holiday. Then as a student you have so much free time. Then I came in fourth in that tournament, and it kind of spurred my my love for competitive gaming, because I figured I have the time and I have the they have the energy, and I feel like this could just could spin into something more.
Now here you are, you're a professional gamer. Then it means for you affiliation with the team that you've got, UU and
UIU, actually UIU.
Yeah. So here you are getting into this, and you actually do more of the fighting sport. How different are they from something, say, like football or basketball or motor racing?
To be every game has its own mechanics. FIFA is much more different from fighting games, and I'm not clowning on FIFA. I know it's technical in its own terms, but Ronnie would be more informed to tell you more about the mechanics of that game. For games like Tekken, there's a lot of fundamental stuff that you have to learn to compete at the highest level, such as frame data, such as movement, such as punishment, and character knowledge, because the game has a roster of like over 40 characters that you have to at least know how to navigate the situations that you may be put in, and how not to react to some situations.
Elimination match system like in wrestling,
more or less.
Now let's talk about this, Ronnie. From what you've seen and from some of the videos that I've taken a look for the gaming in this country, how's the championship like? What's the reception?
For what I'd say, at the moment we have tournaments spread all over, so you can't per se claim to have a national tournament at the moment. So at the moment what we have, as my role is known as a TO, a tournament organizer, is that many people are organizing these games. It's the easiest form, or the basic unit is a video gaming cafe. If you go to the hood, you'll find that at least every weekend 1 or 2 cafes are doing a tournament. Maybe people register with 200, 300 shillings to play in it. Then once in a while now, we have the so-called mega tournaments, which in our country we'd say most of the time prize money will go to 250,000, sometimes to 500,000.
Is that the entire pot for the winner?
That's the prize pool. Maybe the winner would get, like, it's a big tournament, the winner may get like 100K in that, and maybe the runners up 50, and then now you have game titles. In that, when you have a prize pool, You know, now esports is not just a single sport. It's like in sports we have football, boxing. So if you have a prize pool of 500, you'd say maybe for this game, because it has more registered players, maybe I'll put the winning prize higher, and with this game I'll put the winning prize at this level. But basically now the most popular one is simulation football.
Well, we shall be simulation football. Everyone's somehow in love with it. And for you, let's now talk about keeping this going at the local level vis-a-vis outside, playing online, because those are the available platforms for you at the moment. What are the opportunities for gamers that are there at the moment?
I'd say there's opportunities to be had in professional gaming. You know, for someone like myself, I'm a professional tech player, but I haven't just put all my, my eggs in that, I'd say, particular box. I'm also a content creator. I create content on Twitch and YouTube. You know, there's the stuff like the ad revenue and the views, which translate into additional revenue. I get people who subscribe to me on Twitch, which gives me more revenue. And on top of that, I'd say I've built a brand for myself, just being, just as Queen Arrow.
As Queen Arrow.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that everyone's talking about are the social risks that are the risks around gaming. The fact that it can be addictive. The fact that if you get into fight sports, have we gotten to a level like we see out there where people are, actually now move from the console into real life challenges as they go through the various, what do you call them? The various levels of the game?
Okay, to be honest, I've had those concerns, especially from the older members of the society. Yes, I'm not cloning on the olds, but these are some legitimate concerns, and I feel that in games like FIFA, unfortunately, they have microtransactions, and the game is some of these games are also designed in a manner that's meant to induce maybe the player to purchase microtransactions, but that's in the online mode, and which I find that it can be very potentially problematic, and not even in the competitive games, even these adventure games like Assassin's Creed. Also the game is designed to induce you to. It can induce you to, make microtransactions if you want to make progress, and that's where I feel those are the valid concerns pertaining to, problematic gaming. And I feel that this is where regulation, self-regulation of the industry needs to come in, and especially from a legal perspective.
Just to add on that,
I actually want to come to you on that.
Okay.
How then do you talk about this? Elaborate about these microtransactions that are there. That basically is you still want to go that one extra level. How's this inbuilt, and how does it work for that industry?
So on that regard, Wahome, we'll just start on the concerns that you had raised, and just to say, too much of anything is bad. Last week you were here with people who play chess. You called it the clever man sport.
The game of the kings.
The game of the kings.
Yeah, the game for kings and generals.
Now, too much of chess means that I won't eat. It means that I'll spend a lot of time seated, which may be not good for my back. So it's the same to electronic sports, that if you do it in a regulated manner, you avoid such things. Now, on the addictive side, which is brought about by the microtransactions, you'll have to know that the biggest revenue earning for these video game publishers, the developers who make this game, are the microtransactions. That is what has made the industry grow so big. We moved from maybe your time in the Nintendo Switch, where it was a product. Now it's a service. You get? Now it's a service that it's no longer going to buy FIFA 20 and waiting for 12 months to go and buy FIFA 21. You now buy FIFA 20, and during the year when you play online, they are giving you options, maybe to sign a player when you're competing with other guys. So at times it now gets to a point where you must have a Visa card to do online transactions like in FIFA to make your teams. But most of the most popular games are actually free to play. So we have two angles of it. There's the free to play and there's the pay to win. Now pay to win is what has a lot of microtransactions.
And is what I mentioned is problematic, because a game like FIFA is marketed towards minors, because on the cover of the box it's it's rated 7, meaning basically it's for everyone. Now the problem is, the online mode of FIFA has what do you call it? It has the FUT, FIFA Ultimate Team, where you buy player packs. So now the only way you can, and these are randomized player packs. So let's say if I wanted to purchase someone like Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi, there's no guarantee that I'm actually going to get those players. So that's where the problem, that kind of feels... It
becomes like a gamble.
Yeah.
Wow, quite interesting. Yes, we're speaking with Sylvia Wahome. She is a professional gamer known as Queen Arrow. Thank you for being with us this morning. Ronnie Lusigi is an event organizer. And quickly, your word, is there... the industry in Kenya, is it going up?
I feel it's actually going up, to be honest. We're making the slow but gradual steps to, make actually esports a viable career.
She's raised something about self-regulation. Are you going to work towards that?
Basically, we have a body responsible for that. We have a federation in our country. It's still small. She's also part of an international federation, which are looking at these things as we go forward. But it's just the best way to regulate is to accept it. You can't regulate something you're not holding. Accept it, hold it like a baby, and mold it.
Thank you very much. Ronnie Lusigi is an event organizer for esports and a professional e-gamer. We've got Sylvia Wahome, aka Queen Arrow. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. This has been Sports Check. Well, I wind up now, and I will be handing you over to Kurunzi ya Darubini. Our sign language interpreter this hour has been Lensa Odingo. Thank you for being with us. Have a good day.